I'm continuing the course Overcoming the Darkness, a Christian Response to the Cults, Heresies, False Religions, and the Occult. And we're in section 5 about occultism and spiritism. And this time I'm going to start with reincarnation. Job 14:14 asks, if a man dies, will he live again? And then in Hebrews 9:27, it says, it is appointed that we die only once. So that kind of shows what the real answer is. Now, reincarnation is deeply embedded in Hinduism, Buddhism, and all the Eastern religions and cults, many of which I've already talked about. And reincarnation simply means the cyclical evolution of each man's soul, passing through various lives until it reaches karma. And when the body dies, the personality of the person is ultimately dissolved, which means they're annihilated, before the soul is reborn into either another person, an animal, something. And karma, of course, is their belief that you will reap what you sow in the next, what you sow in this life will be reaped in the next life. So it's really very difficult to get out of it. Their belief is that God is an impersonal force or the universal mind. And it's very interesting, their doctrine of the Trinity, which they've completely redefined, is Father, Son, and Mother. And I see that they bring in this female individual. For Christ, they say simply follow his example. He showed us how we can obtain our own God-likeness. Evil for them, it's illusionary. It doesn't really exist. And if you go to India, where this is very prominent, then you'll see all sorts of evil. As far as man is concerned, they believe the body is harmful, limiting the soul, and that they have to go through karma in order to be liberated from this body. For salvation for them, it is truly by works. And yet, I think we should also ask the question, as I have in the chapter, why reincarnation has grown. And a lot of people, they avoid sin, being called a sinner. They don't have to repent and so forth. And so they see it as a very acceptable way of looking at their life and the future without heaven, hell, and all of that. And then I talk about the source of past life recalls in this chapter. And I explain a lot of times the subconscious mind will simply retain experiences and thoughts and modify them to appear to be a past life experience. Could be a true fabrication. It could be brought out through hypnosis, but it really is not biblical. And I explain that in the chapter. Now to the second area is astrology and horoscope. And astrology is very popular. The horoscope also is in many newspapers throughout the U.S. And it began in Babylon over 5,000 years ago. And it really means a study of life's reaction to planetary vibrations, the moon, the stars, the planets, and so forth. For them, God is simply an impersonal cosmos of all of the planets, stars, moons, and everything. And it's interesting when you study the doctrine of truth in astrology, when you look at all the various astrological predictions, they're never the same. There's no unity there. And so they really, they often contradict each other. So they really don't advocate truth. Also, they talk about your horoscope is determined by when you were born. It's the date, the exact time, and under which sign. Unfortunately, they don't take into account conception is actually when the child begins. So it's a misreading, if they were to use this for themselves, of when the person actually begins to be created. Also, you have the problem with twins, where they go in two totally different directions. If they're twins, why don't they live exactly the same? You have moving constellations. The constellations are not fixed, so you have them constantly moving. And also the constant discovery of new planets. First they began with 5, then there were 7, now there are 9. There may be more yet to be discovered. Now, the scientific charts for the horoscope really designed the Earth as the center of the universe, and we know that's not true. In fact, the sun is the center of our universe, but there are literally hundreds of thousands of other universes that exist outside of ours. Now, horoscopes oftentimes are too vague, or they're simply wrong. And also in the zodiac, there are 12 constellations, and now we realize there are actually 14. And they've simply tried to keep everything stable, but in fact, things are not stable at all. So as you study this chapter, I conclude with a biblical condemnation that it is occultic, it is a form of worship, and it fails the prophetic test of being correct 100% of the time.